What's good, man?
Are you crazy?
Yeah.
Okay. What's your comment?
Bro. So I have some questions for you.
Okay.
About Orthodox ecclesiology. Yeah. I want to know what makes the church the church. Like, do we all have to preach the same thing, or we have to agree on everything? Like about doctrine. Like, let's say eschatological views or the end times, all of that.
Well, I would say, yeah, I mean, there is a basic outline of what you can and can't believe, right? So there is areas where people can disagree, but for example, on the end times, like you can't believe in premillennialism because that's excluded by Constantinople I.
Oh, okay. But that's my question because I see the early church and I don't see them as a united grouping doctrines and the end times. Like,
well, hold on. Paul says one Lord, one faith, one baptism. So they are united in one faith.
No, but Justin Martyr said, there's people that don't believe in this, which I think he was premillennialist. And he said, these people are Orthodox still. Even though we don't believe in the same thing.
But hold on, so this came up earlier, and this relates to what I was saying about when there's periods of debate, certain views might be tolerated until there's a council that says, okay, we can't do that. This is the right position, that's the wrong position. So councils help decide between those debated issues.
Yeah, I'm aware there was synods around 300 years. But there wasn't no ecumenical council, like let's say, oh yeah, we all believe in this thing and nobody can say anything else. But
some of them do. So some of the pre-Nicene synods do say that. Like the synods of Carthage and the synod of either Ancyra or Gangra, they say what you can and can't believe.
I mean, I think I read the Synod of Carthage and about their canon of scripture. And that's the other church.
Well, hold on. There's a bunch of canons of synods of Carthage. So what I'm saying is, if you look up, I always get Gangra and Ancyra mixed up. But so one of the first councils is.
Yeah, I think I heard you.
So this is prior to. Okay, so hold on. Hold on. So here's Carthage in 257 under Cyprian, and it has canons about what you can and can't believe, right? Okay. Yeah. So that council is talking about baptism, and it teaches baptismal regeneration, by the way. Here is the Council of Ancyra in 314, which is a local synod, and it talks about the Eucharist, it talks about deacons and bishops, it talks about heretics, it talks about all kinds of stuff you can and can't believe. So what do you mean?
What do you mean? What do I mean? I mean,
you said that these early councils don't talk about what you can and can't believe.
That doesn't mean. I mean, when I said about the councils, was like every single church had a different opinion on things. But by example, I think there's this church called Laodicea.
Well, they didn't have differences on everything. They might have differed on some things, sure.
Yeah,
but that wouldn't mean that there's no common faith.
I mean, it doesn't seem like they had a common faith, though. Even, I think Origen said that.
Well, hold on. So
we're not.
That's not true. I mean, when there was already early creeds and confessions before Nicaea. So what do you mean they didn't have a common faith?
Did you say confessions? Like they all.
Yeah.
So they all, let's say.
For example, they confess. Let me give an example. They confessed belief in things like baptismal regeneration. They confess belief in things like the Eucharist. They confess belief in the deity of Christ, the apostolic succession. Okay. That's always there.
Yeah, but I'm saying I'm not saying they didn't agree on the basic things. I'm saying they didn't agree. Like I told you, in like eschatological views. Like I told you, premillennialism to me.
Yeah, I think
church fathers of the early church.
But they were synodal. Hold on, they were synodal, and so they allowed differences until the synod settled the issue. That's what I'm saying.
But you said, I mean, if we all don't preach the same thing.
Who?
That's what the Orthodox Church says. Like, we are the unchanged church. We never change. We've always been the same. And like I said, like I seen church fathers preaching different things.
Yeah, but
I read church
that's
fathers.
not what, that doesn't mean that everybody in every era had every single point the same. The point is that there are basics and there are things that are not basics, and you can have disagreements on things that are not basic.
I mean, I think eschatological views are pretty basic because some can lead you to heresy, and that's true, you know.
Well, that's what you think, but I mean, if it's not determined until the First Council of Constantinople in 381, so like you think there shouldn't be, like there shouldn't be, we shouldn't cut some slack.
I mean, in my opinion, it's like I'm a Protestant, so we don't even got councils though. You know what I mean? So it's like that's a problem to you, not to me. Cause
no, it's not. It's not a problem for me because you're importing to what I believe a position I don't hold. So when I say that there's one Lord, one faith, one baptism, that doesn't mean one faith in every single bit of minutia. There's going to be debates and divisions and schisms in the history of the church. So, and by the way, your very argument about eschatology not that it is a fundamental issue, that would undercut your own position because Protestants are completely divided on eschatology.
Yeah, I mean that's my point.
So there's not one. So there's not a consistent faith.
I mean, for me, it is because I don't
Well, I mean, for you, we're talking about what's the case. We're not worried about what's subjective. We're talking about for history.
I mean, for me, I don't hold the same position as, let's say, we all gotta preach the same thing in the end times. Because what I see in the other churches is that they preach different things. Even apostolic fathers who actually follow the traditions.
Yeah, but I never said. So your argument is based on the idea that the church fathers are infallible and inerrant, and I don't believe that.
Oh no, I know they ain't.
Well, that's not my position either. So where is the inconsistency?
No. The inconsistency is that you said, like, in your position, having different opinions on doctrines makes a church false. And it
depends on what it depends on what the doctrine is. So there are things that are fundamental, like for example the Nicene Creed. Those are fundamentals, right? So if you disagree with something in the Nicene Creed, right. But when Nicaea happened, they didn't. Yeah. That didn't have the added statement of Constantinople about eschatology, right?
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying or not? So Constantinople I's the second council. It adds the phrase "whose kingdom will have no end." That phrase was added to exclude premillennialism. So what I'm saying is that you can have people who thought premillennialism was an opinion in the church that you could have until Constantinople I, when it excludes it. That's different from saying something like there is no return of Christ, right? That's an obvious heresy.
Yeah. All right, Dan. That's all the questions I had.
Thanks those are good questions. Fair enough.